This is I Have No Title on Us podcast reviews. We are your hosts, Tyler
and Chris.
And today we'll be reviewing the Phoenician Scheme. There'll be no spoilers on this. If you want a deeper look at what we think about the movie, we'll have a more in-depth video coming out later, so keep an eye out for that. This is Wes Anderson's newest film, and it stars Benicio del Toro as a businessman who is looking to maybe adopt this girl to be his new daughter and right hand and heir apparent to his business. But she is also in the midst of taking her vows to become a nun. But he is trying to form a scheme to have his business partners fill in the gap for the finances for a big project they're working on that will potentially keep him rich for the rest of his life. But in the meantime, he is being chased by assassins all throughout. And that's essentially the story here.
The titular Phoenician Scheme.
Yeah. So I think this needs to preface it that if you're not a big fan of Wes Anderson, this is clearly Wes Anderson all over it. You're probably not going to like this movie.
Maybe they don't know they're a Wes Anderson fan yet. Trying to get people to not watch it? We gotta make our money back on this one.
I'm just trying to set expectations.
Go watch this movie. Wes Anderson needs the money. You think he doesn't, but he does.
But yeah, overall, I like the movie. I think you should give it a shot, but just know what you're getting in for.
It is a Wes Anderson movie. I mean, that's like, I got mildly obsessed with his previous film, Asteroid City, and because of how layered it was like at the beginning of the Royal Tenenbaums, a book opens up and you're in a book. It's like you're being read to, and there's chapter markers and it shows the page and some of the actual narration and dialogue. And that's it, though. That's the layer. In Rushmore, it opens with just curtains being drawn back. Like you're watching a play, but it's a movie. And he writes plays. In the Grand Budapest, it's like a person goes to see a statue, and then we see that statue of the man who is then living. We jump back, a few years, and he's then living, and then we jump back several more years to before he writes the book that would affect the woman who would come to see the statue years and years later after his death. And that's the layer. But in Asteroid City, it was like you're watching aspects of the making of the play and then the play itself, but it's presented like a film. And then there's like, it even goes so far within the play layer, like the behind the scenes layer, that it's like they're doing exercises, like, as a group, but like acting exercises, like the whole you can't go to sleep or whatever. Here's the thing I forget about Wes Anderson, because he is so quirky and eccentric as David Lynch, but like not in the same way, but like, maybe the equal and opposite or something in some ways. I forget that Wes Anderson is an open book. You can listen to it. If you want to know what something's about, he'll just tell you. If you're like, what's this movie about? He's like, oh yeah, well, it's based on my father-in-law, who was like he was a lion among lions who were lions among men. And yes, and my inspirations were these 7 films. We watched them relentlessly. You can see that moment in there where I ripped off that scene right in there, yes. And it's like, oh my God, I can know everything I want to know about this. So yeah, I forget that. I sometimes don't even watch interviews with him, or I haven't for a long time, because I thought, what's the point? Well, not what's the point, because you could get insights from people, but I hadn't. And so I recently did, and I was like, oh my God. Not that it did annoy me with David Lynch. I understand why he did what he did. However, where his works are so impenetrable, like, could you give us just a push, a nudge in the right direction? But with this is maybe one of the more straightforward, except that there are these asides, which you get to really early on. I don't think this is really spoilers, because, to a degree, but they're not really spoilers for the plot or anything. There are aspects of the film, like you said, he keeps having these assassination attempts. The movie opens with a plane crash, and obviously he is in more of the movie, so he does not die in that plane crash, and that's a spoiler for the first 5 minutes, but, he's the star of the film, and he goes through the whole thing. It's not one of those, like, swap out things like in The Acolyte. So this isn't that. Like, Benicio del Toro is in this movie, and a lot. It's almost like he's in every single scene. I think he might actually be, except for asides that jump away for like 30 seconds that he's not in. He does have all these assassination attempts, and whenever something comes really close, there's these, we go to this other world where he has these visions of like an afterlife, kind of. But it's almost like he's at the gates and is being judged in a sense. It's not exactly that, but Wes Anderson described them as surrealist visions that aren't particularly religious. I don't want to talk too much about this now because I want to save that for the bigger discussion of like a full spoiler review. Somebody said these were pointless, I think. Was that, you said this movie got booed somewhere?
We'll save that for
okay.
our bigger discussion.
Okay. I don't see it.
No, I enjoyed the movie. It's maybe not his best work, but it's definitely not his worst.
I don't. It's not my favorite movie, but don't get me wrong. I think this is his best film since The Grand Budapest. When I've seen it twice now. I saw it on a Saturday night, the first available chance I could, and it wasn't a packed theater, but it felt like it with the energy. It was full of hardcore fans, and they were laughing. I think it's got this. Here's my real actual review, just blurbs. It's got a frenetic pace. It's his fastest paced film by a mile, especially considering some of the previous ones. The Asteroid City was like a little slower, and like some aspects of The French Dispatch were a little slower. Some of it actually really quite fast, but this whole thing goes at a clip. And it's also, this is purely subjective, but I think his funniest. And it was like everyone was laughing. Everyone was kind of locked in that first showing. And I have seen other people say like, this is easily like maybe his funniest film. It's dry and definitely like a Wes Andersonian kind of humor.
I was gonna say it didn't have me like laughing out loud, but
I didn't hear a giggle in the second time we saw it together in a completely different city than I saw the first one, and I didn't hear anybody. It was on a Thursday night, and I think everyone was just like dragged themselves from work.
There's a few people in the back that kind of.
Could you hear some?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad. I hope they enjoyed it.
Yeah. For me, it's one of those things like I appreciated the humor and I thought it was funny, but like it wasn't like a gut busting kind of.
Well, no, I mean, I wouldn't say that, but it's also in a weird way his most violent film.
Yeah, kind of.
Just based on a scene at the beginning and a scene at the end alone, which I will not say what those things are, but if you're a fan of violence and maybe Wes Anderson, go check out what I'm talking about.
I think all the actors did a great job in this. Benicio del Toro was fantastic, and his would-be daughter, is it Mia Thrappleton?
Yeah, I believe that's close enough.
I'm not sure how to say her last name, and I apologize for that. She's a relatively new actress, not been in a lot of stuff, and the stuff she has been in, I've definitely not watched, but thought she did a great job in this. Michael Cera, also great.
Oh, loved Michael Cera in this.
A lot of nice cameo or minor roles.
Yeah, we did get he wanted to not break his streak with Bill Murray in Asteroid City, and because of scheduling, they only got him for like a thing that didn't really make it into the film, so it was kind of an extra thing that was just released separately or on a DVD extra. So Bill Murray is back in this one as maybe his biggest role of all in some ways, which I will not spoil for this, but it's definitely not much more than a cameo, sadly.
We were missing a few of the Anderson mainstays, though. Lack of Swardson and Owen.
But, he's worked with Benicio del Toro twice now in a major way in The French Dispatch, and he wrote this film for him. And I do not know if he had a contingency plan. But fortunately, Benicio loves acting and just loves doing different things. He's got such incredible range.
I think he's kind of underrated. You don't hear many people talk about him.
No, I've been a big fan of his since the film Basquiat, which him and Jeffrey Wright were in together quite a lot. And that movie was one of those things, where you know this thing is changing the trajectory of your life as you're watching it. Like when I saw A Clockwork Orange at too young an age, these things can happen. One thing I do want to say in defense of this, like it's like it's dense, but it's not. It's vaguely dense. Like when they say, that's why I say, like, are there things in these contracts that we're not seeing? Because it's meant to sound complicated. And then you and Becky and I were discussing it after, and Allison, everybody disagreed with me and was like, it's simple. You just need some 25% of the money. Dumbass. What do you think the Phoenician scheme is? He's just getting 25% of the money, dumbass. And I was like, then why do they say he keeps fiddling with it? And it's like they barely notice, okay? That he's been fiddling with it, fiddling in quotations. And I'm like, no, it's more complicated than that, but it's meant to be, you don't worry about that. You don't care about it. It's like the Enron thing.
I don't want to do spoilers here, but I will explain at least what I think that is in our longer version.
Okay. And that's the thing is I think it's that quirky Wes Anderson thing. But the point I was going to make really is just this. And if you want to call, I don't know how long we've been going on, if you want to call it. I think this is about it. People are saying Wes Anderson is getting swallowed up in on himself. And I kind of did say that in French Dispatch and Asteroid City, although I have a different opinion coming back from that a few years later. Who's making films like this? I'm looking at the landscape of cinema right now, and I'm seeing a lot of the same things over and over again. What are we on our 15th Mission Impossible movie? Whenever they inevitably do make another Fast and the Furious movie, how many of those can they make? It's the same thing over and over again. And I used to hear this from people when I was in my 20s, and I thought, man, just go enjoy movies. When they're like, how many times can you watch the same explosion? But like, who's making like indie films? I'm not going to say are dying, but they're not getting out there like they were in the mid 2000s.
I think maybe that's the thing, is the stuff we're seeing from Hollywood is so much the same. It's either recycled tropes, remakes based on existing properties.
Yeah, prequels, sequels.
Yeah, or like books, comic books, whatever.
Or they're remaking a movie, or they're making a sequel to a movie and just forgetting the number and rebranding it as like Scream.
So when you see something like Wes Anderson's stuff, if you've not seen a Wes Anderson film in a while, it is kind of a shock. So maybe that's...
Yeah, if nothing else, if you're wanting to shake it up, it's like when you listen to jazz for the first time. Nobody sits there and listens to jazz for the first time and is like, oh yeah, this done changed my life. No, you're like, this is, it's difficult, but you like the difficulty of it. You want a challenge. The person who did it is either incredibly talented or just around, and you don't know which, and you have to get to the bottom of this. And that's me with Wes Anderson. I will be at this lifelong, struggle of life and death with him. One of us is destined to kill the other, and I'm over 20 years younger than him, so I think I stand a pretty good chance of unraveling the mystery. And I really, we should do a separate thing about the Henry Sugar things. I think it's been over a year since I've watched those, but I'd rewatch them. And did we talk about them?
No, we did.
Was it like they did 4 or 5 of them, and they were on Netflix about a year ago? Maybe more than that. The Roald Dahl things.
I think we talked about that he was going to do them,
but we never got back to them.
We never got back to it.
We should do that.
I still need to watch them.
They are interesting. I don't want to say anything more about them, but again, it's like when you ask yourself, when you just look at the cast, if you're still on the fence about Wes Anderson, look at the cast and say to yourself, why do all these people want to work with him?
Yeah.
Why do they want to go and do the same thing over and over again? They want a challenge. They want to do something different. They want to work in a fun environment. And that was something that, again, very akin to David Lynch. David Lynch wanted to create a safe environment that people enjoyed working in. And Benicio was saying it's such a surreal experience. You show up on set and the director comes and meets you and shakes your hand and shows you around and introduces you to everybody. And then at the end of the day, he gets you and takes you out to dinner and he's like, what world is this? And it's like such a lovely thing, and that's what everyone has to say is he works with most of the same people every time, and he keeps collecting people, and this is behind the scenes, his real crew that put the movie together, and there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a reason.
So I was going to say, some of these people are in like Star Wars and Marvel, and so they're making the money. Mm-hmm. So on one hand, it's like, they've got the wiggle room to be able to accept this.
Yeah, because they're not getting the money that they're working for scale.
But on the other hand, like, they don't need to take this role. They're doing it because they truly want to, and you don't take those kind of roles if this guy's like a bastard or something.
Yeah, and I think taking that into consideration, hearing there were horror stories that come out of Hollywood, but then there's just like, it just wasn't fun, or they didn't enjoy it, and you wonder, like, was it just stressful to work on a set or something? And I would just like to make sure that people like this can keep doing what they want to do. I'm not worried about Wes getting his next meal. No, I'm not. I want to see him continue to make films, short films, long form films. Edgar Wright made a documentary like 5 years ago. I'd love to see Wes do a documentary. Also, nope, I'll save that for the full discussion.
Yeah, so I think we'll wrap up the review here. Final thoughts: not his best work, not his worst work, definitely worth a view. And if you're a big Wes Anderson fan, add it to your collection when it comes out, if they're still releasing physical media by that time.
Don't even put that out there. Why would you say that?
I'm just trying not to get my own hopes up. Just have them dashed. But watch the movie. If you can find a viewing of it, go. If you have to wait till streaming or, home release, definitely jump on that when it gets out. You have any other final thoughts?
Goodbye, everybody.
So we'll have a longer form of this if you want to know more about what we think and maybe some more spoilery things if you've already seen the movie. But until next time, see ya.